Fresh off the win over the Hornets, the Bulls dropped this bombshell. Zach Levine will require an additional 3 to 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to evaluate and treat his current right foot inflammation. Yeah, right. Listen, if you're new to the show, this is P Kid. This is the Windy City Breeze. Let's dig into this right now, as this interesting timing for this news is blowing my mind. Let's get into it. Listen, Zach Levine, we all know, has been they who wants out. All right, listen, there's no doubt about it. Zach Levine and the Chicago Bulls, this relationship has gone south. It's soured. It's spoiled making out this point. It's really time to move on. And you know what? No one's really batting an eye at that. It's just very interesting that at the moment that they decided that they were going to try to start to facilitate a trade for him, he gets injured and then isn't available for a week. During that same span, we go 3-1, and everyone on the team all of a sudden knows how to play basketball well with each other. Very interesting. Billy Donovan all of a sudden is a good coach. Very interesting. Now, mind you, we've beaten some. The Hornets are not like the Boston Celtics of the world. Let's not make any. Let's not confuse that, right? But we've been so bad that it doesn't matter who we beat at this particular point, because we've looked that disconjointed, that just not in it. And now it looks like maybe the issue was probably Zach. Now, I'm not of the ilk to sit there and make that statement. I do believe that there's a lot more that kind of goes into this. But I find it interesting that the moment that you see some people take a step back, that others have stepped up and done so in a large way. I have to give a shout out to Kobe White, who again had 19, 9, and 5 in a dominant win. DeMar DeRozan doing his thing, Vooch doing his thing again. The team just looks better. The team looks like they're clicking. Everyone seems to kind of be filling in and playing their role well. And we look like we may have some form of an identity at this particular point, too. Like, we kind of know what's happening, who's doing what. It looks better. Now, let's get into this 3 to 4 weeks. Zach Levine being down another 3 to 4 weeks ironically puts us right around the time where most people expect him to even be dealt or be available to be dealt for teams who are now going to have the opportunity, due to the fact that a lot of people who we are in trade talks with, or rumored to be in trade talks with, have players that can't be traded to January 15th. If you do some quick math, 4 weeks puts us a week away from January 15th. Now, we all know that these deals don't just happen the day of. There's talks that happen before then, things of that nature. But simply put, the Bulls need to find a reason to sit Zach Levine, and they found it. Then they need to find a reason to not pay him and do certain things. Well, excuse me, they do have to pay him, but they need to find a reason to look at this continuity, if that's what we're going for. Continuity, that word there, right? That hope that doesn't come back to bite us in the behind. But they need to find a reason to find out if this is going to work. They can't just sit Zach and say, well, we're not going to play him. The new CBA doesn't allow it. That's not going to fly. There has to be a legitimate reason, or a reported reason, for why that player is not on the court, especially if he's considered a star in this particular league. And by many accounts, Zach Levine will be considered a star. So with that being the case, the Bulls have kind of figured out, we're moving forward. We got to find a reason to sit him, and this is our way out. And I just think it's just like, wow. They didn't even waste time. Mind you, this came out literally a couple, 30 minutes to an hour after the game that we got this particular report of how long he'll be. Now, Zach will be available for media coverage tomorrow. He'll be available to kind of talk about this thing. But at the end of the day, we all know where this is going. We all know why this is happening. The Bulls have found their mojo, so to speak. They are starting to gel, and they don't want to mess that up. So instead of messing that up, they're really testing out what they have here, seeing who's going to be here, seeing who's not going to be here. Or maybe it's just this one person. Maybe it's just Zach Levine. But ultimately, there's a lot of different angles as to what this could mean. My bet is that this is just a ploy to make sure that they can actually build this team out, or jail this team, build some continuity within the veterans, being DeMar and Vooch, and the younger players, Kobe, Ayo Dosunmu, maybe we consider Alec Caruso a younger player as well. And maybe even P. Will finally starts taking bigger leaps as well in his role. And we really get to see. I've always felt, and I say this repetitively, I've always felt like having DeMar and Zach was overkill because they did the same thing at the same position and wasn't ever going to work. There are very few teams, if any, where they had people at the exact same position who did the exact same thing in almost nearly the exact same way or wanted to do it in the exact same way, and it worked. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum only worked because, ironically, one of them can't do what the other one does. Zach Levine and DeMar, you get the sense that they can do. DeMar is just more seasoned and older. People need to remember that DeMar DeRozan at Zach Levine's age was probably the same player, if not the same player. Go back in time, put your time machine on. That it really was, like he really was one of the best two guards that couldn't get over the hump in Toronto. So they just had too many similarities. They were doing the same thing, and DeMar's still playing at a very high level. It didn't work. It's not working. So now you look at this and you say, hey, I need to build. AK is probably putting forth this best effort to see what this can be by moving on from Zach Levine and building pieces around it. But I want to hear your thoughts, man. I want to hear your thoughts on whether or not you think this is a ploy to facilitate trade deals or ideas by this 15th of January. Mind you, he can be traded before then. It rarely happens, as Pat has kind of mentioned on this channel before, but he absolutely could be traded before then, as there are some players who will be available for trade a month before, meaning December 15th. The Lakers have a few. The Lakers have two players, I think, that would be of interest to the Bulls who would be traded on the 15th. There are a couple other people who would as well, and Miami is still one of those teams to watch out for in case they decide to make a move because, as I've mentioned before, Tyler Hero is still available. Many people say that he's not. Tyler Hero could be traded tomorrow, and so could Zach. But I want to hear your thoughts, man. Whether it's love, whether it's hate, put it in the chat. Let me know what you think about it. Is this a ploy? Is this a Brian Windhorst moment as to why they would sit him for a miraculous or mysterious, rather, 3 to 4 weeks? Or is this a legitimate injury and we're overblowing him? Give me your thoughts. I'll be in the chat with you. Till next time.